Welcome to Honest HR, the podcast for informed and aspiring HR professionals intent on transforming workplace challenges into golden opportunities.
Every week, we chat with industry experts to bring you insights, trends, and actionable advice through relatable stories from the real world of HR.
Honest HR is a SHRM podcast, and by joining us, you're helping to build a more engaged workforce and drive organizational success. I'm Wendy Fong.
I'm Amber Clayton.
And I'm Monique Akanbi.
Now, let's get honest.
Welcome to Honest HR. I'm Amber Clayton. Today, we're exploring how HR can use learning and development as a tool to enhance all aspects of the employee experience, from recruitment to fostering growth to retention. Joining us for this discussion is Jay Jones, Lead of Talent and Employee Experience here at SHRM. Welcome to Honest HR, Jay.
Thank you.
Great. So for our audience, can you start off by just telling us a little bit about yourself and your role here at SHRM?
Yeah, so as you mentioned, I'm a lead here at SHRM, and I prioritize on learning development, one of my passions. Excited to talk with you about today, but also focus on performance management and employee experience. So it's a very fancy way of saying I get to touch all of the things that keep people very happy at SHRM.
Great. And how about before SHRM?
Prior to SHRM, I actually worked at a variety of different organizations, but just prior to this, they had the largest platform of auctioneering in the United States, which was very interesting to help lead. I did work primarily with the corporate teams, but it was very, very rewarding, but I'm very happy to be here at SHRM and to focus on my main passions.
Great. So I have to ask, auctioneering, like furniture, clothes, artwork, cars?
The tout of the CEO was they once sold a submarine. So
oh, wow.
A variety of different things. It could be something as simple as headphones, all the way up to cats, so those large construction uses. So a lot of different things that they had on the table.
I'm glad you clarified cats.
Yeah.
I was thinking you're auctioning
not the fun furry ones. No.
Great. Well, according to SHRM's 2024 Employee Benefits Survey, formal training provided or funded by employers to help employees either learn new skills or to keep them current reached their highest percentage in at least 5 years, from 74% in 2020 to 80% in 2024 for the new skills, and from 77% in 2020 to 82% in 2024 for the current skills. So what are all the big reasons that employers should continue to invest in learning and development? And I'm probably going to call it L&D going forward, that's okay.
It's okay. You know, it frankly, it just puts you behind the 8 ball if you don't. It's something that if you say you're looking for high performing individuals, then they're going to value that at a high level. And hopefully they're going to want to value that at a high level within your organization for a very long time. So having that at the forefront of your recruitment strategies, your retention strategies is paramount. And then being able to articulate to them as far as how that looks within the organization and how that impacts their career growth is just something that all high potential employees, staff are going to be looking for you to lead them throughout their careers.
Great. And so what are some of the effective ways to offer L&D in the workplace?
Well, it depends on your workplace. I don't think that there's a one box answer to that. If it's an organization similar to SHRM where there's a variety of different departments, then it's important to just be able to speak to that with not just from an organization's perspective, but even divisionally. Mm-hmm. So does that look like mentorship programs where you can partner staff with high level leadership? Does that need to look like peer-to-peer learning where individuals can learn from someone who's been very successful within the company for a long time? Does that need to be external learning if it's something that's highly specialized? So it's really about knowing your workforce and how best to interact with the staff to make sure they're successful.
Okay, great. So what about some of the other different formats that L&D could take in an organization? Yeah,
so again, it really depends on your organization. Like you were asking about my previous organization. Mm-hmm. I happened to work with the corporate unit, but they obviously had quite a few warehouse employees, and how I would approach that for someone who's got a desk in front of them versus someone who's on a machinery for the majority of the day is very different. So that might entail e-learning, whether we do have a moment for them to even out on the floor to stop for a moment and learn some new skills, whether that's customer service or just how to improve interpersonal relationships and agility within the organization. Or that might look like, as I mentioned earlier, it might be peer-to-peer where someone is spending a specific amount of informal time with someone within the organization that's just been there for a while and doing it at a high level. So it's really about figuring out the best way to interact with your staff, and that comes through truly asking them and then being able to set a long-term plan for whether that's through succession planning or exactly how you'd like to see them to grow within the organization.
Yeah, and I can definitely see with being remote or hybrid that
Yes,
employers are doing
absolutely.
a lot more of the e-learning training or the video conferences. And I can remember, and this was years ago, I'm probably aging myself, that I would actually have people come into a conference room and put in a VHS tape for training. And now training can be done on their smartphones. And, things have changed so much over the years as far as learning and development. Yeah, absolutely. So, as far as digging into L&D for recruitment, how would you advise HR professionals to talk about and promote L&D as a benefit to prospective employees?
Yeah. First, TA teams definitely has to understand how that works within the organization and how that pertains to who exactly we're recruiting. And being able to connect that to not just the start of their careers, but how that impacts their careers long term. So that really comes down to understanding your organization. One of the top things that if you talk to someone outside of HR who's trying to interact with us and use us as a high level impact on the organization is that business acumen. So it really comes down to understanding, one, what that looks like within your organization, even down to individual departments, and then figuring out what's really valuable to who you're trying to bring in. And our careers, we have to keep up with quite a few different certifications. So being able to talk about in detail, how exactly do you do that so that you can be successful? And then also being able to talk about how that can be customized to individuals, because it's quite frankly, where someone starts in their career might not be where they're in their career within an organization. So being able to map that out and even providing a variety of paths for them to be able to do that is something that would get majority of high performing individuals excited. So you definitely want your talent acquisition staff to be able to do that at a high level.
Okay. So how would you assess a prospective candidate's what they want as far as L&D? Can you give me an example of how you might determine what they're interested in or what might be something to get them on board with the company?
Yeah, well, I like it to be just organic. So asking them first is to see exactly how they'd like to do that, because I'm a big nerd. So if you just tell me that you got something and I'm ready to jump into it, but some individuals might not be at a part in their career where they're earning a degree or they need a new certification. They might want to specialize and focus on specific skill gaps that they've learned about themselves throughout their job search and their job search journey. So just being able to interact with them directly and then having those answers ready to go is paramount. And that comes down to being in alignment with your leadership team in terms of how you are able and even willing to provide that type of benefit to them as they're coming in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know that when employers are competitive in the market for good quality employees, they're always trying to find ways and benefits and things that they can do to attract those candidates. Just on the L&D part, how would you share that information with people who haven't even reached out to you or maybe haven't, seen a job ad? What would you do? How would you communicate it?
Yeah, well, I mean, social media is the name of the game nowadays. So being able to put out there exactly how you support your employees internally, whether that is just straight putting out your platforms and what your offerings are, whether that's tuition reimbursement, certification reimbursement, or it's those success stories. Lots of employers will put out their accomplishments that your staff have had, whether that's a new master's degree, a new certification. That's I have a belief that those types of things need to be organic. So sharing those success stories is a really easy way to do that.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. I mean, sharing them internally and externally.
Absolutely.
I mean, you could actually have something like that on your careers page where you have videos, testimonials from your employees about what they've learned or how they've developed within the organization. So great. So when it comes to developing L&D initiatives that foster career growth, what are some considerations that HR professionals should keep in mind as far as setting parameters and expectations?
Again, I think it's about being really transparent with your staff. You want them to be able to fully understand everything that they have access to. And you want to ensure that each employee does have access to that. Because you mentioned hybrid versus return to work formats. That looks entirely different in both of those areas. So just being able to, clearly articulate exactly what offerings you're able to provide for them, and then not just offering it, but promoting it. Those success stories we just talked about, embedding that into rewards. So are you able to offer incentives for earning a new degree, earning a certification? It's about being able to not just set the parameters, but offering as success stories and as an incentive for them to want to engage in those learning development items in the first place, because everyone's not a nerd like myself who's just looking for those opportunities. Being able to engage with them, show them how it's effective in their roles, and then also connect that to how it's effective for the organization is how we can not just set them those parameters, but encourage them to take advantage of them.
And I imagine too, as far as expectations, I know some employees feel like, oh, when I come on board with the organization, I'm going to have this happen in 6 months, and then I'm going to grow into this position in 9 months. So really setting those clear expectations as to how the L&D works, if it's a succession planning, what the employer does, career growth or career paths. I imagine that you'd want to, make sure that they know clearly how that works. It's not just about tenure and the time that you're with the employer.
Absolutely, because it kind of can't be. And even that's coming down to just showing them the career pathing period. That's not always possible for every organization, just because some organizations do approach leadership in different ways and career growth in different ways. But if there's a way to set at least a clear line and clear path for them, that it's just important for the staff to understand that as they're coming in.
Yeah. And that's something that I do actually with our roles in my department is when someone's interviewing for a position, oftentimes they ask, what's the career growth like? And I explain to them some of the limitations that we have as far as career growth, but that it's not just about moving up, but there's opportunities to move horizontally. And I think a lot of people don't necessarily think about those things. They're kind of thinking about moving ahead, but there's opportunities to be able to gain skills and to actually work in other areas too in some of the companies. So,
Absolutely.
Well, moving on to using L&D as a way for employers to bridge skills gaps and keep their workforce on their leading edge, there was a recent Gartner report that said that 64% of the managers they surveyed believe their employees won't be able to keep up with the future skills needed. So how can HR professionals work with managers to develop the L&D initiatives that can minimize that concern?
Yeah, I mentioned that business acumen a little earlier. It's truly about engaging with them to see exactly what those items are, because you don't want to put out a blanket L&D program, because that's where you lose the engagement of your staff and, quite frankly, the confidence of your leadership team to be able to utilize you as a resource. So engaging with them about exactly what those skill gaps are so that we can customize a program to them and then find the necessary resources. And they don't have to be expensive resources. I in my previous organization, I did not have quite the budget that I get to enjoy here at SHRM, but that was okay. There are a lot of resources, whether there's a local library that can provide access to the same resource, LinkedIn Learning, or if it's about finding specialized certifications online, because Google, quite frankly, offers quite a few. So it's just about figuring out exactly what those skill gaps are so that we can provide a tailored approach to that individual team. One of the opportunities I'll say that a lot of organizations have is trying to just buy and kind of spit out what the L&D just could be for the entire organization. And that's not going to be valued by your staff. It's not going to be valued by the leadership team. And that makes it very difficult to gain their buy-in to ultimately promote those things so that you can build your staff from within or create that high-performing environment that all employers would like to have. So it's just really about figuring out what's truly needed by that particular team and figuring out the custom plan that makes sense for them.
So they would be doing some type of a training needs assessment.
You got it.
Essentially. Great. One of the things that we hear in the Knowledge Center is employers who ask us, what's required training? What do we as an employer have to do? And it's an interesting question because there's no federal law that says you must provide XYZ training, but there are varying state laws when it comes to compliance training, like sexual harassment training. There may be OSHA safety required training, but oftentimes it's really about the employer and the industry and the positions. And so where could someone go to, a manager could go to look to see, what may be required or what they might want to do as far as training? I mean, there's so many different training opportunities, learning and development opportunities out there.
Yeah, well, and are you asking for like a departmental or is it more of a HR?
Well, not necessarily HR, but as far as management, like where do you start? I know you do the training needs assessment, but are there resources or places that a manager could go to see, what types of training might be recommended for their organizations?
Yeah. I think it again kind of depends on exactly what the organization is. Like if it's HR, obviously there's a pretty easy spot to go to to figure out what certification they might need.
Thank you.
But no, I guess it depends. Like you said, there are very few federal items that we need. Obviously, we have quite a few that we take care of here internally. But it's just about understanding your team. We have a variety of different SMEs within the organization, and being able to engage in what does your team need long term? Because we just talked about skill gaps just a moment ago. Artificial intelligence is something that's very, very new to everybody in the workforce. So it's about having that 1-5-year plan to see exactly where your organization needs to be then, and then figuring out what internal assessments that you can do to figure out exactly what individuals on your team need in terms of being able to get there at that point. And then from there, if it's not something you can do internally, then engaging with your HR team to figure out what the best path would be, whether that's, again, creating something internally for the team so that they're ready when it's time to get there, or do we need to look externally for programs that will set you up for success?
And you mentioned artificial intelligence, and I'll just say we're not going to dive deep into artificial intelligence on this podcast. I think that can be a whole nother episode, as well as the learning management systems, the technology around L&D. So we're going to skip that one for this podcast, but thank you for bringing it up. So taking career growth one step further, how can HR professionals use L&D to help grow high-performing employees into specific leadership roles for strengthening the business long-term? So things like succession planning or leadership development, as you mentioned.
Gotcha. So within that succession planning, because we talked about skill gaps, it's about identifying exactly what those items need to be, and then also assessing where your leadership team is right now. Because from there, you can figure out what pathing you need to take. So does it need to be individual development programs where we are specializing it for a specific role at a specific time? Do we need to bring in new talent via, say, a management development program? Or can we develop something internally for the management staff that we have right now? So again, I don't mean to sound like a broken record, but it's about organically interacting with your staff to figure out exactly where we need to be and by when. And that will allow you to give you the pathing that you need to figure out the method in which we're going to get there.
And I imagine apprenticeships, internships, fellowships, all of those things help in that area.
Yes, and I'm glad you brought that up because that's where you can also engage your manager staff because it's rewarding to get that either way, especially if you're talking about creating that high engaged performance, high performance environment. It's a retention both ways. Obviously we've been talking a lot about bringing people into the organization, but some people don't want to go up to be the CEO of a company. They just want to see the. I'm not quite there yet.
It's too big of a task
I like
for me.
seeing Johnny make it happen.
Yes, he's too good.
Yeah, for sure. It's rewarding for staff to see someone grow, even become their boss one day. So programs like internship programs, even if they're external programs that you're doing on behalf of the organization, when you're not necessarily bringing someone in to be a part of it long term, that's a phenomenal tool that's probably underutilized.
I was at a conference a few years ago, and one of my former interns from many years ago was there, and she actually got a position as an HR manager, and I was just so proud.
There you go.
I was so proud. I mean, most of what she did with me was helping with more of the HR administrative side, but it felt good knowing that I was able to help her and that her career, she had career growth in HR. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's the fun part.
So let's turn to using L&D for retention. What are some of the best ways that HR professionals can leverage L&D opportunities towards this end so that employees know that they're valued and that they want to stay?
Yeah, so rewarding them for one, because even here at SHRM, we have incentive programs for people to continue their education. So it's about showing that is truly valued within the organization, and showing that your strategies are aligned with that. Because you just talked about succession planning not too long ago. So clearly showing to your staff that this isn't something that we are doing purely as a retention tool, to be frank. This is something that we're doing to invest in you, seeing your success, and putting you in a position to be successful long term, and ultimately helping our organization to be successful. Showing that to them can be success stories that we talked about, the incentives that I mentioned a moment ago, but it can also be as simple as being put in a spotlight at important meetings. I know that even internally here, we make sure that at least quarterly, we dedicate time to spotlighting staff who've had phenomenal accomplishments when it comes to learning and development, whether it's a certification, a new degree, even if it's just something that they accomplished within their teams. So it's about spotlighting that and showing to your organization that this is something that we value, not just to keep you here, but it's something that we are doing to support you here, and whether it's here or somewhere else in the future.
Yeah, and just for myself and my department, the advisors, obviously they're the subject matter experts, so they have to have a lot of professional development and training, but we also do projects outside of what we typically do in our department, and for me that, is helping them to grow. So something like taking media requests that maybe they never had to do any of their previous HR positions before, and that's a skill that they can take and go, somewhere else or stay here. So I'm always looking at those opportunities for them to be able to expand, maybe speaking engagements, things like that. So I think it's really important.
Stretch roles, or stretch opportunities, I should say. Because those, even and I've even found in my own career, stretch opportunities that didn't go so well, your manager having the confidence in you to do that in and of itself is a learning, development, retention opportunity. Now, obviously, we want them to go very well, and most of mine went just fine. But that even that is a phenomenal thing, and I'm glad to hear that's happening.
Yeah. Well, we learn from our failures, right?
Yeah.
So what's your take on an employer using some kind of special L&D incentive once they're concerned an employee is looking elsewhere, or as a counter to them giving notice? I think oftentimes employers think about money, but L&D. What do you think about that?
I'm a proactive kind of guy. I wouldn't say that it's wrong to do, but I think at that point it's too late. We've been talking about strategies for whether it's internal staff or talent that you're bringing in. At that point, likely they're valuing what the new employer is offering at that point anyway. Now, that being said, I've been talking about engaging with them organically. So if that's something that they're valuing at the new organization, then offering it to them at that point isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it's likely deeper than that at that point in terms of what other items and needs that they need from you, and why they started looking elsewhere in the first place. So not wrong to do, but I think there's the issue is probably deeper than that.